Happening now, Conagra is recalling more than 2.5 million pounds of meat. According to the Department of Agriculture, a packaging defect can allow the products to become contaminated without the product showing any signs of contamination.
10 people dead, dozens hospitalized, millions of pounds of food quietly pulled from shelves across America. That was 2024. And no, the victims weren't eating sketchy street food. It came from sealed cans from their own kitchens, from brands they'd trusted for years. Even right now, in your pantry or your parents' kitchen, there are cans linked to serious outbreaks, toxic exposure, and recalls that never made the evening news. So today, I'm exposing 10 canned foods you should throw out right now and stay till the end, because I'll show you 4 alternatives that actually passed independent safety testing. Let's start with a brand that'll probably choke you, literally. Number 10. Dinty Moore Beef Stew. Dinty Moore is Hormel's brand, and in May 2025, they recalled their beef stew because cans were contaminated with wood pieces. Wooden food is a choking hazard, especially if you're older and your swallowing reflex isn't what it used to be. Aspiration pneumonia, the kind you get when food goes down the wrong pipe, kills about 50,000 Americans every year. A chunk of wood in your stew could be the thing that lands you in the ICU. Hormel is the same company behind Spam, Skippy Peanut Butter, and Jennie-O Turkey. They're not small, they're not broke, and yet contaminated products keep slipping through. But this next product doesn't just risk choking you, it could paralyze you without warning. Number 9. Canned Vienna sausages. Vienna sausages are the kind of thing you either loved as a kid or still can't stand to look at. Those pale, soft little links floating in salty brine. Nostalgia for some, a ticking time bomb for anyone over 50. In 2023, over 2 million pounds of Armour Vienna sausages were recalled because of packaging defects that could allow botulism, one of the deadliest toxins on Earth. A few nanograms of this toxin can paralyze your diaphragm and suffocate you, and it has no smell, no taste, no warning. Even worse, Vienna sausages are low-acid foods, which means they rely entirely on high-temperature sterilization and a perfect seal. One failure is all it takes. But let's say the seal holds. One small can delivers 700 to 1,000 milliliters of sodium. Most people eat the whole thing and blow through a huge chunk of their daily sodium limit in minutes. Reduced sodium doesn't save you. It often just means less salt and more potassium chloride, which can be dangerous if you have kidney disease or take common heart medications. Add in nitrites, which the WHO links to cancer, and you're left with a salty, processed risk wrapped in nostalgia. Convenient? Yes. Worth it? No. Vienna sausages at least look suspicious enough. But what's truly insidious is when comfort food that's supposed to make you feel better actually makes you sicker, which brings us to our next entry. Number 8. Canned chicken soup. Chicken soup is sold as comfort food. Warm, safe. What you eat when you're sick, but not the canned versions. Because in 2023, over 13,000 pounds of tasty kitchen chicken noodle soup imported from Canada were pulled after skipping federal inspection entirely. That same year, Aunt Kitty's Foods recalled 15,700 pounds of chicken soup for undeclared soy, sending people with allergies to the hospital. Campbell's and Healthy Choice have had multiple recalls over the years for undeclared wheat, milk, and egg. And when it's not recalled, it's still a salt bomb. One serving can pack 900 to 1,300 milliliters of sodium. Most people eat the whole can, blowing past a full day's limit in one meal. Chicken soup is also a low-acid food, meaning it relies on perfect factory pressure cooking to stay safe. If that process slips, dangerous bacteria like Listeria can survive. For adults over 65, infections like Listeria can be fatal. We're talking meningitis, sepsis, death even. So if you want soup, make it yourself or buy frozen. Now this next category actually markets itself as nutritious, hiding sugar bombs behind pictures of fresh fruit. Number 7. Canned fruit in syrup. Canned peaches, pears, fruit cocktail, they look harmless. Sweet, colorful, easy, but crack the lid and you're staring at fruit drowning in sugar water. 1 cup of fruit cocktail and heavy syrup delivers over 40 grams of sugar. That's 11 teaspoons, before you've even had dinner. Light syrup doesn't fix it. That label is about concentration, not health. It's still sugar water, just thinner. And without real fiber, that sugar hits fast, exactly what people with diabetes, prediabetes, or weight issues don't need. A major JAMA study found that adults getting just 17 to 21% of calories from added sugar had nearly 40% higher risk of dying from heart disease. More sugar, and the risk almost triples. But sugar's not the only problem. In 2024, California regulators flagged canned pears for unsafe levels of lead and cadmium. These are metals that build up in the brain, kidneys, and bones over time. And you're eating it because you thought canned pears were a healthy snack. Then there's the cherry on top, literally. Those neon red maraschino cherries were colored for decades with FD&C Red Number 3, a dye the FDA finally banned in 2024 after studies linked it to cancer in animals. Some brands switched, others haven't. All of it sits for months in epoxy-lined cans. The fix is simple. Buy fruit in water or its own juice. Or better yet, grab frozen, because canned fruit in syrup is just dessert pretending to be healthy. But this next item makes you think you're doing something good for your body while it slowly poisons you. But wait, if you're realizing your pantry might be a minefield, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. I expose food industry scandals every week, and the only way you'll see the next investigation is if you're subscribed. Also, drop a comment and tell me if you've eaten any of these canned foods I mentioned. I read every single one. All right, let's keep going. Number 6. Canned spinach. Spinach is supposed to be a superfood. Iron, vitamins, Popeye's secret weapon. But the canned version is a different story. Spinach naturally absorbs cadmium from soil at rates higher than almost any other vegetable. Cadmium is a heavy metal that accumulates in your kidneys and bones for 15 to 30 years. Europe has strict limits on cadmium in food. The US doesn't, so you're eating it, and over decades, it builds. Cadmium exposure is linked to kidney disease, bone softening, and certain cancers. The World Health Organization has set monthly intake limits to prevent long-term damage, but American regulators haven't caught up. But cadmium isn't the only problem. Regular canned spinach packs over 700 milligrams of sodium per cup. That's a huge hit if you're trying to manage blood pressure. And because spinach is a low-acid food, it carries the same botulism risk as Vienna sausages. If the seal is compromised, there's no smell to warn you. You just eat it and hope the factory got the sterilization right. Then there are the oxalates. Spinach is one of the highest oxalate vegetables, and oxalates bind with calcium to form kidney stones. If you've ever had a kidney stone, you know the agony. And if you're on blood thinners like warfarin, spinach's high vitamin K content can interfere with your medication. Too much or too little, and your clotting time goes haywire. Choose the frozen one instead, but there's no reason to choose the can except habit. But nothing captures childhood nostalgia quite like our next entry, and that emotional attachment is exactly what makes it so dangerous. 5. Chef Boyardee canned pasta. Chef Boyardee is canned pasta nostalgia. That smiling chef has been on shelves since 1928. Ravioli, beefaroni, the food a lot of kids grew up on. But the label doesn't tell the whole story. In 2012, Consumer Reports tested Chef Boyardee products and found detectable BPA, with some of the highest levels showing up in their cheesy burger macaroni. Remember, BPA is an endocrine disruptor tied to heart disease and diabetes, banned in the EU but not in America. Then came 2018. ConAgra, which owns Chef Boyardee, recalled over 700,000 pounds of Chef Boyardee spaghetti and meatballs for plastic and metal fragments. In your kid's lunch, the USDA called it a Class 1 recall, meaning there was a real risk of serious harm or death. And what happens when nothing's wrong with the can? One serving of Chef Boyardee ravioli delivers around 900 milliliters of sodium. The whole can pushes up to 800 milliliters, more than most people should eat in a day. Add in the hidden sugar to tame the acidic tomato sauce, plus phosphate additives that stress kidneys and harden arteries over time. Even BPA-free labels don't end the story. Independent tests keep finding BPS and BPF, BPA's chemical cousins with similar hormone-disrupting effects in their cans. So no, that smiling chef isn't doing you any favors. But what happens when a trusted household name racks up violations spanning half a century? For 4, Campbell's soup. Campbell's has been in American kitchens for over a century. Red and white cans, chicken noodle soup when you're sick, tomato soup with grilled cheese. But when you dig into their recall history, that warm, fuzzy feeling starts to curdle. January 2025. 13 products recalled, including Prego sauces, after cilantro contaminated with wood fragments made it into the food. Wood again, in a sealed jar. Just last year. Go back to 2010. 15 million pounds of SpaghettiOs with meatballs recalled because the meat wasn't fully cooked. Underprocessed meat in a can is a botulism factory waiting to happen. In 2002, 237,504 cans of soup were mislabeled, sending people with milk and soy allergies to the ER. Jump to 1971 and 230,000 cans of Campbell's soup were contaminated with botulinum toxin itself. Not bacteria, the toxin. People got paralyzed. Some almost died. Then there's the BPA scandal. In 2012, testing showed Campbell's cans were loaded with bisphenol A, the endocrine disruptor linked to heart disease, diabetes, and reproductive harm. In 2023, Europe set their safe exposure level to nearly zero. Campbell's didn't phase out BPA linings until 2017, 5 years of consumer pressure before they acted. and the replacements, BPS and BPF, might not be any better. Oh, and in 2024, the EPA sued Campbell's for over 400 violations of the Clean Water Act. Their Napoleon, Ohio plant was dumping pollutants into the Maumee River for years. Regulators documented it. Campbell's kept doing it. At some point, you have to ask, how many recalls does it take before you stop trusting the label? Now this next product has been poisoning people quietly for decades, and the industry fought hard to keep you in the dark about it. Thus, 3. Canned tuna. In 2024, a European investigation tested 148 cans of tuna from major supermarkets across 5 countries. Every single one contained mercury. All of them. Worse, 57% exceeded the strictest European safety limits. Star-Kissed, Bumblebee, Chicken of the Sea, John West, Prince's, all the big names, they all had detectable mercury, and in many cases, dangerous levels. Now here's where it gets crooked. Tuna is the only fish where regulators set the mercury limit higher. For most fish, the EU cap is 0.3 milligrams per kilogram. For tuna, it's 1.0. Why? Not because tuna is safer, because the tuna industry lobbied for an exception. The Bloom Association, the group that ran the investigation, said that the threshold was not set to protect human health, but solely to protect the financial interests of the tuna industry. Translation: profit over safety backed by regulations. Methylmercury accumulates in your brain and kidneys. It doesn't flush out easily and builds up over the years. Pregnant women who eat too much tuna risk giving birth to children with neurological damage, lower IQs, developmental delays. Consumer Reports in 2024 outright recommended pregnant women avoid canned tuna altogether. And as if mercury wasn't enough, in 2024, Star-Kissed, Bumblebee, and Chicken of the Sea settled a class action lawsuit for $152.2 million. They were charged for price fixing. Between 2011 and 2015, they conspired to artificially inflate tuna prices. So you paid more for poisoned fish from companies that broke antitrust laws to squeeze extra profit. You were the mark twice. Mercury contamination is bad enough when it's accidental, but what happens when a kitchen staple has all possible risks? 2. Canned chili. Canned chili combines every major risk we've talked about. Sodium overload, botulism risk, chemical additives, hidden ingredient swaps, and a history of outbreaks that killed people. In 2007, a commercial chili sauce plant underprocessed its batches. The result was a nationwide botulism outbreak. People were hospitalized, some even died. The CDC investigation found that insufficient thermal processing allowed spores to survive, and botulinum toxin formed inside sealed cans. Chili is a low-acid food, which makes it a perfect environment for Clostridium botulinum if the sterilization process fails. But let's say the processing went fine. You're still eating a sodium disaster. 1 cup of canned chili with beans delivers around 1,000 milligrams of sodium. Most people eat the whole can, which is closer to 2 cups. That's 2,000 milligrams, nearly your entire day's limit in one meal. And then there's the potassium chloride trick. You think you're making a healthier choice, and you're actually putting your heart at risk. Add in the phosphate additives that keep the texture uniform, and you've got another problem. And don't forget the can lining that contains bisphenols, which can leach into the food. Sounds like a loaded weapon aimed at your heart and kidneys. Now, the number 1 spot goes to a product that actually killed people in 2024. Number 1, canned deli meats. Boar's Head. You've seen the logo, probably grabbed their ham or turkey from the deli counter. Premium brand, right? Trustworthy. That's what 10 families thought before 2024 turned into the deadliest Listeria outbreak in over a decade. Between May and September, their liverwurst and other deli products killed 10 people and put 60 in hospitals across 19 states. Inspectors documented 69 violations between 2023 and 2024. They found black mold on walls, mildew coating equipment, dead flies, puddles of blood and meat residue on floors, and what they described as a rancid smell coming out of coolers. One report mentioned insects so bad they were crawling over production areas. Another flagged condensation dripping directly onto food contact surfaces. This wasn't a surprise inspection that caught them on a bad day. This was pattern after pattern, month after month, and the plant kept running. 7 million pounds of product got recalled. The CDC investigation confirmed liverwurst as the source, and genetic testing linked cases across the country back to that one facility. And to make matters worse, this wasn't hidden. Regulators knew, they documented it, and people still died because the system let it slide until the bodies piled up. Now, Listeria is worse if you're over 65, pregnant, or have a compromised immune system. It crosses the blood-brain barrier, causes meningitis, and kills about 1 in 5 people who get invasive listeriosis. Boar's Head is premium, trusted, expensive, and they still poison people. Alright, I know that was a lot. You're probably staring at your pantry right now, wondering what's even safe to eat. But not all canned foods are disasters. Actually pass independent testing, deliver real nutrition, and don't come with a list of recalls. Here are 4 that made the cut. But first, if I've made you rethink the canned foods you've been eating, hit that subscribe button. And tell me in the comments, which of these canned foods are you shocked to see on the list? Now, on to the safe ones. Number 1. Canned tomatoes. Canned tomatoes are the safest option on this list, and here's why. Tomatoes are naturally acidic, with a pH below 4.6. That acidity prevents botulinum spores from growing, which makes them inherently safer than low-acid foods like chili or soup. Add in the high-temperature sterilization process, and you've got a product that's sealed, sterile, and hostile to dangerous bacteria. But safety isn't the only win. Processing actually makes tomatoes more nutritious. Heat breaks down cell walls and releases lycopene, a powerful antioxidant linked to reduced risk of heart disease and certain cancers. You get more usable lycopene from canned tomatoes than from fresh ones. If you cook them with olive oil, your absorption rate spikes even higher. Studies show adding fat can increase lycopene absorption by up to 400%. The sodium is the main concern, but it's easy to manage. Look for no salt added labels, or even better, very low sodium, which means 35 milligrams or less per serving. That's a legal definition, not marketing spin. Many brands now offer organic versions in BPA-free cans, or you can buy tomatoes in glass jars or cartons to avoid metal linings entirely. Number 2. Canned beans. Beans are one of the safest canned foods because of how they're processed. They're pressure cooked at 240 to 250 degrees Fahrenheit, which kills off botulism spores and makes the can commercially sterile. As long as the seal is intact, you're safe. Canned beans are actually safer than a lot of fresh deli foods, which sit in refrigerators where Listeria can grow. The sodium issue is real, but it's fixable. Rinse your beans under running water for 30 seconds, and you'll cut the sodium by a third to half. Studies from the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition confirm this. That quick. Rinse turns a salty disaster into a heart-healthy protein source. Beans deliver 7 to 9 grams of protein and 6 to 9 grams of fiber per half cup. They're also loaded with potassium, iron, and folate. Swapping out red meat for beans a few times a week lowers cholesterol, steadies blood sugar, and feeds your gut bacteria with prebiotic fiber. Once you open the can, don't store leftovers in the metal container. Transfer them to glass. Store them in the fridge and use them within 3 to 4 days. Number 3. Canned sardines. Sardines are small fish, which means minimal mercury accumulation. They're packed with omega-3s, protein, and if you eat the bones, a huge dose of calcium. They're minimally processed, usually just sardines, water, or olive oil, and maybe a little salt. No preservatives, no weird additives, no sugar. Look for sardines packed in water or extra virgin olive oil. Avoid soybean oil, which oxidizes easily and doesn't add any nutritional value. Many sardine brands now come in glass jars or pull-top cans with safer linings. Sardines have been independently tested by groups like Clean Label Project and Consumer Reports, and they consistently score well for low heavy metal content and minimal contamination. They're one of the most sustainable fish choices too, because sardine populations are well managed and reproduce quickly. If you can get past the strong flavor, they're one of the best shelf-stable proteins available. 4. Canned wild-caught salmon. Wild-caught salmon is one of the cleanest proteins you can get in a can. It's low on the food chain, which means it doesn't accumulate mercury like tuna does. Testing consistently shows wild salmon has some of the lowest mercury levels of any fish. You get omega-3 fatty acids, which are proven to reduce heart disease risk, lower inflammation, and support brain health. If you buy the bone-in version, you're also getting a massive calcium boost, which is critical for bone health as you age. Look for labels that say wild-caught, not farmed. Farmed salmon can be higher in contaminants and lower in omega-3s. Also check for no salt added and BPA-free or BPA-NI linings. Brands like Wild Planet and Safe Catch publish third-party test results showing their mercury levels and sourcing practices. That transparency matters. Once you open the can, transfer leftovers to a glass container. Don't leave it in the metal can in your fridge. That prevents any further chemical leaching and keeps the fish fresh. Wild salmon isn't cheap, but it's one of the few canned foods where you're actually getting what you paid for. So that's it. 10 canned foods you shouldn't be trusting anymore. We're talking wood, metal, botulism, salt, and a whole lot of chemicals that don't belong anywhere near food. But now you know 4 of the safer ones you should be getting instead. So if this changed how you look at your pantry, hit that like button and share this with someone who still thinks a sealed can means safe. Subscribe so you catch the next investigation exposing these food companies. And remember, the FDA doesn't inspect every can. That responsibility lies with you. So stay safe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.